Imagine for a moment that the very foundations of our society, the quest for truth, the promise of freedom, the pursuit of prosperity, were actually, maybe subtly, guiding our beliefs, shaping our reality in ways we barely perceive. What if the narratives we consume daily aren't just reflecting the world, but actively constructing it? Maybe even turning us into, well, the unwitting faithful of new secular systems.
That's a fascinating thought to start with.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we're plunging into some really thought-provoking material we've gathered, centered around this idea of the corruption of the faithful. Our mission, like always, is to sift through this stack. We have articles, research, our notes, and pull out the most vital nuggets of knowledge for you.
Yeah, try and make sense of it all.
Exactly. We'll be looking at how contemporary society, maybe beneath its modern surface, has developed these new forms of theocracy and faith. Not religious, but in politics, media, economics.
Right.
Transforming citizens,
Yeah.
potentially, into devoted adherents of these new systems.
That's the core idea. And it's important to stress, this deep dive isn't about traditional religion as we usually think of it.
Yep.
Instead, it's more an exploration into how the fundamental structures of belief and control and maybe even devotion have sort of mutated in our modern world.
Mutated, that's a good word for it.
Our goal really is to understand how essential concepts like truth itself, the meaning of language, even our ability to just sit and think quietly, contemplation, how these things are being challenged, maybe eroded, sometimes completely re-engineered.
It's a journey that's intellectually stimulating for sure, but also, frankly, a bit unsettling when you dig into it.
It can be, yeah.
We're going to unpack how words can become weapons, how democracy might morph into just a ritual, and how this constant state of distraction could be reshaping our very reality. Okay, let's get into it. So, to kick things off, the material we've looked at makes this pretty stark claim. The world we live in isn't some neutral forum for discussion anymore. It calls it a battlefield of narratives, where, and this is a quote, truth is neither won nor lost, only weaponized. That's a powerful statement, isn't it?
It absolutely is. And what's really striking there is this assertion that in this war of narratives, truth isn't something we discover, through evidence or reason. It's assigned.
Assigned. How so?
Well, the conflict isn't fought with tanks or bullets, but with words. The goal isn't seizing land. It's rewriting our shared reality.
Okay.
And the research outlines 3 sort of critical laws for this narrative warfare. First, the power to name is the power to rule.
Right, labels.
Exactly. Labels aren't just descriptions, they're weapons, used to elevate someone or condemn them. If you control the definitions, you control the conversation.
Give me an example.
Okay, like a person isn't just a person. They might be labeled a construct of the system. Or truth, it's not independent, it is assigned based on who's talking and what their goal is.
Got it. What's the second law?
The second one is contradiction is strength. Now, this sounds weird, right? Counterintuitive.
Yeah, very.
But this narrative war, it doesn't demand logical consistency. Actually, the sources say cognitive dissonance is not a flaw. It is the fuel of the system.
Wow. So keep people confused.
Keep them reacting. Yesterday's hero can literally become today's villain. What everyone believed this morning can be fake news by tonight. This constant churn keeps people in constant reaction, never reflection.
Okay, constant reaction. And the third law.
The third law. Memory is the enemy. History isn't this fixed record of the past. It becomes a weapon for the present.
Valuable.
Completely. The past is controlled by whoever has the power to retell it now. Facts get rewritten, events reinterpreted, all to serve the current narrative. So yeah, the hero of last year can become the tyrant of this year, easily.
That's a chilling thought, that our collective memory is deliberately messed with to keep us off balance, unable to form a coherent picture. But then, okay, if truth is assigned and memory is rewritten, what happens when this war of narratives infects the very words we use every day? What happens when language itself gets corrupted? When words don't just describe reality, but actively try to create it?
Now you're hitting on the weaponization of meaning. This is critical. The sources argue that the first step in controlling a society isn't seizing its oil fields or banks.
It's seizing its words.
Exactly. Definitions get subtly rewritten. Speech gets policed. Some words become sacred, untouchable, others forbidden, toxic.
And intent doesn't matter.
Intent becomes irrelevant. Only how your words can be interpreted within the dominant narrative, that's what counts.
Okay, so this corrupted language, what does it do? What's the function?
2 critical things, according to the research. First, control perception. Freedom can be twisted to mean obedience. Justice might get redefined as vengeance. If you can relabel oppression as liberation, people won't fight it.
Right, they might even embrace it.
And second, maybe even more insidious, it paralyzes thought. If nobody can even agree on what basic words like democracy or equality or fairness mean anymore, well, how can you organize any kind of resistance?
It fractures everything.
Precisely. As the research puts it pretty powerfully, I think, when words can mean anything, they mean nothing.
And you mentioned historical echoes. This isn't totally new.
Not entirely new territory, no. We see hints of this throughout history. Plato, for instance, he warned us about the sophists.
The rhetoricians.
Right, masters of rhetoric who could make the weaker argument appear the stronger. Basically creating a fake reality through language that sounded convincing but wasn't grounded in truth.
Okay.
Then you have Nietzsche, more provocatively perhaps, suggesting there are no facts, only interpretations, which highlights how easily truth gets filtered through our perspective, something easily exploited. Foucault talked about regimes of truth, how power structures basically decide which ways of talking are considered true and which aren't.
Right.
And Hannah Arendt, her observations are really chilling here. She said, if everybody always lies to you, nobody believes anything any longer.
Leads to paralysis.
A people that no longer can believe anything cannot make up its mind. And that creates a public that's terrifyingly malleable, easy to control.
And Orwell, of course.
And Orwell, naturally. 1984 is practically the textbook on this kind of language control. Newspeak.
So given all this intense weaponization of meaning, what does this mean for you, listening right now as you're scrolling through headlines or your feed? How do you even start to push back against this, to see the manipulation? It's tough.
It's a constant challenge. Requires real vigilance.
Okay, now here's where our dive suggests things get really interesting. The idea that even democracy itself has changed, transformed somehow. It's evolved from just a system of government into a new kind of faith, almost sacred.
Exactly. That's the concept the research labels theocratic democracy. It describes a system where democracy isn't just about government by the people, but it functions more like a sacred order.
It's a sacred order.
Yeah, demanding obedience, ritual participation, like voting, maybe even a certain kind of sacrifice. It's tied tightly to the state, tangled up with ideology and economics.
Okay.
The sources actually call it an unholy trinity. The state acts like God, the market is the church, and the citizen is the believer.
Wow. State as God, market as church, citizen as believer.
And in this framework, corruption. It isn't seen as a bug or a flaw in the system. It's presented almost as a feature. The big illusion isn't that the system is perfect, but, and this is a quote, that it is the only thing that ever can possibly work.
So don't question the fundamentals.
Right. Participate in the rituals, vote, consume the right news, buy the right things, but maybe don't question the underlying structure too deeply.
And the market is the church part. How does that work?
Well, think about where people seek salvation or fulfillment. In this view, it's not in spiritual practice, but in endless consumption.
Buying things.
Constantly. The market is kind of ingeniously designed to keep its congregation eternally unsatisfied, always promising that next purchase will bring happiness, fulfillment, redemption, but it never quite does.
So you keep coming back?
Exactly. Think about Black Friday. It almost looks like a modern religious pilgrimage, doesn't it?
Huh. Yeah, I could see that. The frenzy.
Corporate logos become like tribal totems. We venerate billionaires like demigods simply for their wealth. Even things like the prosperity gospel, equating godliness with riches, fit this pattern.
Interesting parallel.
Theologian Harvey Cox wrote about the market as God and how it provides this overarching meaning system that dictates how many people live, often without them even realizing it's happening.
So the hunger people feel, it isn't for truth or meaning necessarily. It's for this manufactured cycle of consumption, fueling a system that keeps them wanting more.
That's the argument. It feeds this cycle.
But hang on, markets also drive innovation, right?
Yeah.
They offer choice. People benefit from that too. How do the sources square that?
That's a really crucial point, and the research isn't saying markets are inherently bad. It doesn't deny the benefits.
Okay.
But it highlights how, within this specific theocratic democracy model, the excesses of the market get weaponized. They're used for control.
How so?
This leads to what the sources call the devouring class. Now, this isn't your typical elite group. It's described more as the restless masses who seek fulfillment but only find themselves consuming their own world.
Consuming their own world.
Effectively eating themselves alive.
Yeah.
Driven by a hunger that's not natural but deliberately manufactured by this market as church system.
Okay, that's dark.
It is.
Yeah.
And they break it down further with what they call the three parasites of the modern world. First, the economic parasite, wealth generated through manipulation, speculation, extraction, not actual creation or value.
Okay.
Second, the social parasite,
Yeah.
where relationships, communities, even culture become commodified, transactional. Everything has a price.
Right, like social media influence?
Could be an example. And third, the cultural parasite, which consumes our heritage, our history, spits it back out as easily digestible, marketable content, stripping it of deeper meaning.
Wow.
The sources even float this idea of corporate feudalism.
Corporate feudalism, what's that?
It's where individuals are less like owners and more like tenants, constantly paying for access to their own lives. Think about software subscriptions for things you used to buy once.
Or smart home devices that stop working if you don't pay.
Exactly. Paying endlessly for access, not ownership. You're renting pieces of your own life back from corporations.
It makes you wonder, doesn't it, that feeling? Do you ever feel like you're constantly chasing something, never quite satisfied? Like the whole system is designed just to keep you moving, keep you consuming, instead of letting you just
Be.
or
Yeah.
reflect. I know I felt that.
I think many people recognize that feeling, yeah. That hamster wheel.
Okay, so all of this, the narrative wars, the market church, the devouring class, brings us to a really crucial point. What is all this doing to our minds, to our ability to think deeply, to concentrate?
This is where the research talks about the dissolution of contemplation. The argument is stark. When thought is shattered, reality bends.
Chatter thought.
There's what they call the war on stillness. Why? Because, quite simply, a person who is still is a person who might reflect, might question, might see the illusion. Stillness is a threat to a system built on constant motion and reaction.
So keep us busy, keep us distracted.
Precisely. The modern world has this ingenious architecture of distraction. Endless notifications pinging, algorithmic feeds curated to keep you scrolling, constant hyperconnectivity.
It's relentless.
And notice, we aren't necessarily forced to be distracted. It's more that we're trained to fear what happens when the distractions stop.
Fear the silence.
Yeah, deep fear of solitude.
Yeah.
We're conditioned to equate stillness with boredom or emptiness or missing out. FOMO, right?
Yeah.
And the terrible result is what they term the destruction of deep thought. Knowledge gets skimmed, not absorbed. Arguments become sound bites or tweets shouted. Complex ideas are flattened into simplistic slogans.
And the danger there is,
A population that cannot think deeply, cannot question deeply, and ultimately cannot effectively resist manipulation. The sources even use this really unsettling phrase, digital zombies.
digital zombies.
Yeah.
It's passively consuming.
Yeah, caught in this vortex of shallow, endless content, never really engaging critically.
That's a disquieting image. And this constant distraction, it's made worse by what our sources call manufactured confusion,
Yes.
described as a perpetual state of struggle that keeps power in motion. How does confusion help power?
Well, it's actually quite brilliant from a control perspective. Confusion benefits power. Think about it. If every truth is subjective, every perspective valid, then who really wins when no truth can ever be agreed upon, when no consensus is possible?
The people who want to maintain the status quo or push their own agenda without challenge.
Exactly. It creates ideological dependency. The system, or the state narrative, first helps create the problem widespread confusion, uncertainty, and then it offers itself as the only source of clarification, the only solution.
Yeah.
Trust us, we'll tell you what's real.
Create the disease, sell the cure.
In a way, yes. We're living in what many call a post-truth era. It's characterized by this anarchy of narratives, echo chambers, filter bubbles, algorithms that actively encourage people to create their own truth, regardless of facts.
Like the tulip mania analogy you mentioned earlier.
Exactly. The Dutch tulip mania is a great historical parallel. A collective illusion, a shared belief totally unmoored from any underlying reality or value that eventually, inevitably, collapses. But immense damage is done along the way.
And Arendt had insights here too.
Hannah Arendt, yes, again offering a chilling perspective. She noted that the ideal subject of totalitarian rule isn't the convinced Nazi or communist, but people for whom the distinction between fact and fiction no longer exists.
People who believe everything and nothing.
Precisely. They believe everything and nothing all at once, which makes them perfectly malleable, ready to accept whatever narrative is pushed loudest or most effectively. Dostoevsky's novel Demons is also mentioned as a powerful literary metaphor for this kind of ideological possession.
Where people just surrender their judgment.
Surrender judgment, reason, even basic compassion, all for the sake of the cause, the ideology.
Wow. That's a lot to take in. And it really makes you stop and think about the personal cost, doesn't it? What happens to your sense of self, your own inner compass, when you're caught in this constant whirlwind of information, distraction, shifting truths, when reality itself feels like it's bending around you?
It's a profound question about individual identity and autonomy in the modern age.
It really is. Okay, it's clear this deep dive paints a heavy picture, a concerning one.
Definitely.
But history also shows us that societies can change course, right? They can reform when faced with big crises. So given everything we've talked about, this corruption of the faithful, the manipulation, what do these sources suggest we do? Are there pathways to renewal? What's the hope here?
Yes, absolutely. The research doesn't just diagnose the problems, it does illuminate some crucial avenues for change. It's not all doom and gloom.
Good. Okay, like what?
Well, first, the obvious one, restoring truth in public discourse. But this isn't just wishing for it. It means actively investing in things like robust investigative journalism, supporting independent fact-checkers, really strengthening them.
Holding power accountable.
Yes. And it also means boosting media literacy at every level of society. Finland gets mentioned as an example. They have these widely praised programs in schools teaching kids how to critically evaluate information, build that herd immunity to propaganda, you know?
That makes sense. What else?
Championing things like deliberative democracy forums. These are structured public dialogues designed to encourage actual listening and reasoned debate, not just shouting slogans at each other.
Moving beyond the noise.
Yeah. And crucially, political accountability. Strengthening checks and balances, actually holding leaders responsible when they lie or mislead, that has to have consequences.
Okay, restoring truth. What's next?
Next, humanizing the market and redefining prosperity, moving beyond just profit.
The triple bottom line idea.
Exactly. Balancing profit, people, and planet. And looking beyond GDP, gross domestic product, as the only measure of how well a country is doing.
Right, because GDP doesn't measure happiness or health.
Not directly, no. So adopting broader quality of life indices, Bhutan's gross national happiness is the famous example, but others exist, guiding policy based on things we actually value. Health, education, environment, community strength.
And helping people caught in the economic anxiety.
Definitely. Addressing economic precarity. Strengthening social safety nets, things like universal basic income pilots, guaranteed healthcare access. These aren't just handouts. They can free people from constant survival anxiety. Pope Francis's work is cited here, emphasizing the dignity and integral development of concrete persons. Let people participate as more than just consumers or cogs in the machine.
Allowing space for more than just economic survival. Okay, what else?
Another vital pathway is education and the revival of critical thought. This means a renewed emphasis on the humanities and liberal arts. Not just job training, but nurturing critical thinking, ethics, the ability to examine meaning and purpose.
Skills for life, not just for a job.
Exactly. And supporting lifelong learning. Public libraries are highlighted as cornerstones of democracy, temples of knowledge. They should be well-funded, offering things like media literacy workshops for adults, too.
And countering the distraction, the war on stillness.
Yes, perhaps most profoundly, actively cultivating stillness. Promoting things like mindfulness, meditation programs, not as a cure-all, but as a conscious antidote to the impulsive, reactive, almost herd-like behavior the digital age encourages. Reclaiming focus.
Reclaiming our attention spans.
Basically, yes. And finally, the sources talk about the importance of authentic faith and community.
Now, how does this fit in, given the critique of theocratic democracy?
It's about distinguishing genuine spirituality from rigid ideology. Authentic faith, the argument goes, thrives on mystery, humility, personal searching, compassion. Ideology, on the other hand, often feeds on clarity, conviction, and the assertion of absolute truth, demanding conformity.
So faith as questioning versus ideology as certainty.
Something like that. And historically, religious institutions, at their best, have played vital roles in ethical governance. Think Magna Carta protecting church rights alongside due process. Or the U.S. Civil Rights Movement, Black churches were the nerve center, providing moral courage and organizational strength.
Right, a force for justice.
And promoting interfaith dialogue is also key, building bridges based on shared moral principles, justice, compassion, the golden rule fostering real community that cuts across divides instead of deepening them.
That's a genuinely empowering message, actually. It suggests it's not just about waiting for huge top-down reforms. It's about what each of us chooses to do. In our own lives, our communities, how we engage with information, how we treat each other, it really puts some power back in the individual's hands, doesn't it? Not just reacting, but proactively building something better.
Absolutely. The research points towards the need for collective resilience. It calls for a kind of neo-humanist revival, a conscious effort to recenter our civilization on core human values, on what actually gives life meaning beyond the noise and the consumption.
Remembering what matters.
Remembering what makes us human.
So, quite a journey we've taken through the erosion of truth, the rise of these ideological faiths in our big institutions, and the real threat this poses to our ability to think, to connect, to be still. It's a challenging picture,
It is?
but one with clear paths forward if we choose to take them.
Indeed. And the sources leave us with this final thought, this crossroads. We stand right here. One path risks this controlled dystopia, maybe techno-feudalism, maybe digital zombies, where freedom is just an illusion we scroll through.
And the other path.
The other is this neo-humanist revival, reclaiming human values, prioritizing genuine flourishing. The real question isn't whether this storm, this challenging period will pass. It's what we, collectively and individually, will choose to rebuild in its wake.
What foundations will lay?
Exactly. Will we prioritize truth, real contemplation, authentic community, or will we settle for the seductive ease of manufactured realities? So the final question the sources pose really is for you listening. What will you do to reclaim your mind and your reality?
Powerful questions for all of us to sit with. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the corruption of the faithful. Keep questioning, keep learning, and keep digging for what feels true. We'll see you next time.